Today we have Dr. Gary Harvey, medical doctor here in Savannah. And I want to first thank you for letting us interview you today for the students here in Chatham County.
You're entirely welcome.
First question I got for you, Dr. Harvey. How long have you been a medical doctor?
Well, I graduated from medical school in 1976, a long time ago. So you can count the years.
Okay. What college did you graduate from?
I went to a small Black college in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, called Elizabeth City State University.
Okay, all right. So I guess undergrad, what did you major in?
I majored in biology and minored in chemistry.
Okay, so do most doctors major in biology, chemistry?
Yeah, most of the physicians that I know majored in a science, whether it's biology or chemistry. But I've known some of the doctors. One of my best friends in medical school graduated nearly at the top of his class, and he majored in English, believe it or not.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. So the students you don't necessarily have to major in biology, chemistry. You actually could get into medical school with, I guess, if you score high enough on your test in English.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
He took a couple of courses. He was a student at Yale University and was smart enough to decide that he wanted to get into medicine. So he ramped up on his skills in biology and was able to pass the test in order to get to medical school.
Okay, so what, I guess, where did you attend medical school at?
I went to medical school at the great Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I went there from 1972 through 1976 and had the opportunity to meet a number of great physicians and historians like Dr. Montague Cobb, who was a great neurologist and anthropologist, as well as some of the great surgeons in the field, such as Dr. Brother LaSalle Lafall. After I finished medical school, I entered into a residency training program. I decided that I wanted to expand my field, and I went into family medicine. I enjoyed surgery at first, but I just couldn't tolerate the surgeons who were there who act like gods. But I was able to develop my talents in surgery during my training in family practice, or family medicine, as it's called now.
Okay, so I know you have a private practice now. So did you always have a private practice, or did you actually work at a hospital like we think of most doctors?
Yeah, after medical school and my residency training program, which ended in 1979, I moved to Savannah out of Baltimore, Maryland, and established my practice in Savannah, Georgia. And I've been in practice at that location on 907 East 67th Street since that time.
Okay.
I worked in a couple of other places, by the way. I was fortunate enough to get a job with Curtis V. Cooper. At that time, it was the Westside Urban Health Center when I moved to Savannah. And I became one of the staff members or physicians at that institution, which is located on the west side of Savannah. And of course, they have multiple centers now, and I'm still affiliated with that center. I was one of the past board members, and I still have some affiliation with the members of the staff and the CEO there. I've been a member of the two hospitals in Savannah since 1979, including Memorial Medical Center. It's called Memorial Medical University now, as well as St. Joseph's Candler Hospital at their two campuses. I've been a staff member since 1979.
Okay. So, Dr. Harvey, did you know when you were in high school that you wanted to become a doctor?
I think I knew that I wanted to be a doctor when I was about 5 years old, actually.
Okay.
And you asked me why. My grandmother was a midwife. And as a matter of fact, she delivered me
Okay.
and most of my brothers. At that time, we couldn't go to the hospitals. We lived too far away from the hospital. We lived in the country, even though it's an urban area in Norfolk, Virginia. We lived way on the outside of the city, and my grandmother was a midwife, and she delivered most of the people, Black and white, in that community. It was a small community, but she was able to deliver everybody, or just about everybody, who could not go to the hospital at that time. So she was a great incentive for me to become a physician. I remember when doing the horse and cart buggy time, I used to travel with her doing some of those deliveries.
Okay. So you really started your medical education when you were 6, 7 years old?
That's about right.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So I guess this is just destined for you, really. You're already on your path of becoming a doctor, and you really didn't know it.
That's what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it or not, but that's what I wanted to do. And that's where I set my goal to do. I wasn't the brightest kid in the class, but I kind of studied hard. And I was always interested in science.
Okay. So how much education does it take to become a doctor?
It usually takes at least 3 to 4 years in college, and you get your BS degree or your BA degree in college, and of course, high school and elementary school. So that's, a total of, 16 years, 15 or 16 years in school. And then you enter into medical school, which usually takes 3 to 4 years. The majority of students take 4 years. They have some programs. There was a couple of students in my class when I was in medical school who graduated in 3 years. Now they were the extra bright students. And of course, they didn't have the summers off, but the rest of us had summers off, and they were able to complete their training in medical school in 3 years, pass their boards, and enter into a residency training program of choice.
Okay. So Dr. Harvey, I know becoming a doctor costs a lot of money. So how did you pay for, or were you on scholarships, or did your family just have the money they could write a check so you could just start school?
Well, unfortunately, my parents could not afford for me to even go to college, and I had to pay for my college education through working in the summer times, doing construction work, and even through my third year of medical school, I worked in construction work. And finally, in my last year, my third and fourth year, I was able to get a job in the emergency room when I was in medical school to help pay. But most of my education was through scholarships. I happened to, I was just fortunate to get scholarships and grants, and leave my parents out. They supported me with monies to pay for my rent and pay for gas and food, But they were, medical school is very expensive. I think when I was in medical school, the average cost at my particular school was about $20,000 a year. And now it's much more. I think it's around 40, 50, or $60,000 a year now. And it varies with the medical schools that you might go to.
Okay.
So it can range anywhere from 40 to $100,000 a year, depending on which medical school you go to. And if you're fortunate, you can get some scholarships to help pay for it.
Okay. So I know you have a military background. So how did the military play into you becoming a doctor?
Well, the military didn't have anything to do with me becoming a doctor. I wish I had taken some advantage of the scholarships that the military had offered during medical school. There were some students who were involved in the military, and they were able to complete their medical school training in 4 years, but they had to pay back 4 years. It's every year, for every year they give you, you have to pay back a year.
Okay.
So at the end, well, that's a good thing, in that if you are able to get one of those stipends to go into the military after you finish medical school, your schooling is paid for, but you have that obligation to pay them back.
Right.
And then you may or may not be able to get into a residency training program. That's the only other thing that may be a hindrance to your training.
Okay.
Is that if once you get into the military, you may be able to get into a specialty training program, or you may not be able to. But chances are you're going to be able to get into some kind of a residency training program of your choice.
Okay. So Dr. Harvey, tell me how the technology has changed from when you started when you were a doctor to now.
Well, the technology has greatly changed. We were just learning about the electron microscopes and all, and virology and so forth in medical school. And now it's changed so much that it's beyond belief. Medications have changed. Technology has just changed the world. You can take the virus that's the COVID virus, for example. Technology for development of that vaccine developed several years ago, and it's just been sitting there until there was a virus that was able to that we could use that technology and make the vaccines for.
Okay. So I guess as we think of a normal doctor, it sounds like you could go to medical school, but not really practice healing people, but you can go into research or some other avenue of medicine.
Oh yeah, medicine is so diverse. Goes to medical school, they don't the actual practice of medicine to research. They may never see a patient.
Okay.
It just opens up. It can open up doors for research. It can open up doors for political aspirations. After physicians who are involved in, such as our brother, Dr. Sullivan, who practiced medicine for a long, long period of time and specialized in hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, and so forth, and became one of actually became the first person who was the Secretary of Health and Human Resources. I think that was in the Carter administration, or maybe it was the Reagan administration.
Okay.
So you're getting your medical degree opens up a lot of doors.
Okay. what, with all the knowledge that you have right now, is there one thing you would change if you could go back in time that you might have done different?
That's a good question. If I was in college again, and I think I would have been more so concentrating more in getting more biochemistry under my belt. I more or less concentrated in getting more knowledge in biology, but and I didn't do a lot of biochemistry, which is pretty much the hardest course, I think, in medical school is biochemistry. So I would have concentrated a little bit more in biochemistry. And I would have also concentrated more so in getting involved in the medical field, so far as getting into volunteering in places like nursing homes, and volunteering in doctors' offices and doing preceptorships in doctors' offices. That's a great asset in your abilities to get into medical school. You know, when they look at you in medical school or for medical school, then they want a more diverse person, and they want somebody who's going to be involved in volunteering, being a leader. You know, I probably would have played football.
Okay.
So that just, you know, that just adds to your adds to the stepping stones in order to get into medical school. The more you're involved, and particularly the more you're involved with preceptorships, or just volunteering with your family physician or any kind of medical personnel that you know in your hometown, helps you get into medical school.
Okay. So I'm gonna get you out on this last question, Dr. Harvey. For all the aspiring students that's thinking about the medical career, what advice would you give them right now?
Well, I would tell them to study hard, do the best you can do, make the best grades that you can make in high school, and particularly when you're in college, because that's gonna set the course for your matriculation through life. The better you do, and the better the more people see that you can do with your talents, no matter how smart you are. Because, like I said, I wasn't the smartest kid in the class, but I had that advantage of trying to do my best, and I think people saw that, and that helped me move along.
Okay. So Dr. Harvey, I want to thank you for letting us interview you today for Megagenesis. And I learned a lot about you that I didn't know. So thank you for participating.
Well, thank you.